bring one. And I guess what I should tell you about this little bowl, one of my friends who practices Hawaiian shamanism gave me this bowl. And he was a student of mine for a while, and so he would come to the studio frequently. And so we got in this habit that whenever he would come to the studio, we would ring this. Oh, it sounds weird because it has a crystal in it. And over time, I started developing this little area in my studio that became more and more like an altar. And now it has all these crystals on it, and it has a few things that I ring. It has a crucifix that I got when I was like 17 years old. I'm not religious, so that's not where that's heading. But I was raised Catholic, and this is a total segue from how I thought I was going to start, but this seems to make sense. What I want to tell you about this is when I was 17 years old, I went as an exchange student to Spain. And I was very timid, very scared. I grew up in a super conservative family, a very controlling family. I love my family a lot, I respect my family a lot, but it was a challenging way for me to grow up. And so when I was 17 years old, I'm in Spain by myself, living with a family, but I was wandering around in the city by myself. And I wandered into this little antique shop, and I saw this tiny crucifix in the cabinet. And I just was so drawn to it. I thought that's really strange because even though I was raised Catholic, I kind of resisted most things Catholic. But for some reason, this little piece of metal, it just drew me in, and I felt like I needed it. I felt like I wanted to buy it, and that I wanted to have it with me. And so I bought it, and I took it home to Idaho after I was done with my exchange program, and it just got put away. I didn't see it for years. And then so all this time went on, and I was resisting, as most people do, my family and control, and rebelling and going through all this stuff that was challenging for me. And then more recently in life, I ran across this little crucifix, and I got it out. And for some reason, it meant so much to me. And I thought, why does it mean so much to me now? Now I'm 46 years old, and this was maybe 6 or 7 years ago that I refound it. And I realized that at this point in my life, I don't think, why am I gonna cry? I just realized that at this point in my life, that everything that a crucifix stands for my family, now that I was choosing for myself, that it meant something to me, and not necessarily what it means to Catholics. I was taking this little symbol and I was looking at it as peacefulness, as compassion, as rising above the things that have hurt you, as I'm sorry, as just flat out acceptance, just knowing that you're okay in the world. And it took me so many years to be okay with myself. I move around a little bit better. You know how you go through life with everyone's expectations that are on you, and if you're an artist, how many people in here are artists? I know there's quite a few artists, probably most everybody that's here. That'll make me relax, thank you.
We've all cried in the studio, so you're...
I cry in the studio a lot. You know what it's like to be an emotional being, to be a person who goes through the world sensing everything, feeling everything. Everything I do, I feel it so viscerally in my body. Sometimes I think, why am I such a baby? Like, what is wrong with me? I can't have an experience without feeling emotional. And I think the reason that that's important to tell you at this point is that now when I walk into the studio and I have this little altar and I ring my little bell, I finally feel at peace. I finally feel strong. I finally go into the studio with this sense of like power and strength. And I spent so much of my life before so scared and so meek. And I remember a time when I walk into, say, the post office, and when you're the next person in line to go up to talk to the post office person, I would be so scared that I had to speak. Like, I don't know what was wrong with me. Like, literally, I'd be standing there waiting in line, and I would be terrified to speak. And that doesn't make sense to me, because in my artwork, I love to express. I love to put everything out there. I love to, when I paint, it's like a visceral experience. I mean, I slam paint onto the canvas. I'm not a tidy, neat, careful painter. I'm a visceral painter where like There's rags in my hands and brushes, and I'm hitting it and slashing it, and I have trouble with my wrist now because I'm like constantly hitting, the canvas. But I think that I chose art as my way to speak because of all that fear that I had in my body, all that angst that I had in my body that maybe I wasn't okay. It could all come out in the art. Everything that I feel and all that anxiety and angst and passion and desire to speak, it's hard for me to speak verbally, but it's easy for me to speak in the art. And I think that's maybe why, as artists, as creative people, why many of us choose art as our way to communicate. Because in the art, you can be as bold as you want. Nobody, when you're in your studio by yourself, nobody's judging you. Nobody's telling you that what you're putting on the canvas is right or wrong. The only person that's doing that when you're in the studio is yourself, right? Your own self-critic speaks up sometimes, and it's hard maybe to be as bold as you want to be because you're criticizing yourself. But there's nobody else. There's no external forces telling you this is right or this is wrong. And that's how I've arrived at painting this way, is by being in the studio and being brave, confident, to lay it in as however it comes out. Whatever I paint, however it comes on the canvas, it's fine. And I have a mantra that I run through my head. I tell myself every mark is the right mark. And if I start getting scared, and this is for all artists, this is so useful. If you start tightening up or you start judging what you're putting on the canvas or whatever your medium is, just tell yourself every mark is the right mark. Every mark is the right mark. So if I lay in a line or a squiggle or a color, and I think, what is that color doing there? Why would I put that color there? Every mark is the right mark. And then it frees me to just leave it, to just be confident that what I've put in that spot on that painting is exactly right, that there's no reason to change it or alter it. And of course later I might come back and change it completely. I might paint over the entire painting. But in that moment it makes me feel really brave to say every mark is the right mark. So I've kind of gone all around how I thought I was going to start. But there are 3 things that I want to try to get to today. And the first thing is, when you're an artist, a professional artist for many years, I've been doing this for 26 years professionally, one of the big things is how do you stay interested in what you're doing long term? If you're a painter and you paint, for a while I was painting crabs, a lot of you saw all these crabs I was painting. Well, how many crabs can you paint before you burn yourself out? And what I found in order to stay interested in my own art over a long period of time is I constantly have to change what I'm doing. I constantly have to find a new twist. I have to find a new layer, a new color, a new texture that takes my brain to another place that I haven't explored before. So that's one thing I want to get to, is that how do you stay interested? And what that leads me to is that I've been trying to develop new techniques and something that changes up how I'm working. That takes me to this piece, and you might have to actually just turn your chairs because I'm going down here. So this body of work that's in the room, most of it I've been working on for about half a year, about 6 months. And one of the things that I'm always wondering about is how does an artist communicate? Do you want to use abstraction to communicate? Do you want to use symbols? Do you want to paint literally, have everything make sense in the painting? And I like to bounce around between all those things. I think it might be challenging for the galleries that I work with because I work in so many different styles and work in so many different ways. Hopefully there's a thread that runs through everything that you can tell it's one artist. But one day I'm painting, like you look at the one behind Chuck, one day I'm painting completely abstract, no literal anything in it. And then another day I'm painting a seascape. Another day I'm painting abstracted wells. Another day it's a person writing in it. I'm kind of all over the place, but that's how I keep myself interested. And so with this piece, we have a friend, his name is Drew. He's 45 years old. He's super tall. That's why the long canvas. I think he's like 6'5". He has stage 4 cancer, and he's been battling it for quite a few years. And we recently went to his 45th birthday party, and it was a big deal because he had been told 3 years ago that he wouldn't be around in 3 years. And we went to his birthday party just a couple of weeks ago, his 45th, and we spent quite a bit of time with him. And I always talk to him. We have these intense conversations about why are we here? What's the point? Why do we live? Why do we create? Why do we express anything. And so it came to me a while back that I wanted to interview Drew, that I wanted to spend really intense, concentrated time with him. And we kept talking about it over time. I kept saying, yeah, we'll do that, and it kept getting put off. Well, about 6 months ago, when this body of work was starting, it finally happened. He came to the studio, and it was really hard. It was really hard because I wanted to ask him pointed questions. I wanted to get in his psychology. I wanted to know, what does it feel like to have something in your body that's trying to kill you? Not only trying to kill you, but that your doctors have told you, you have a very finite amount of time. And he just opened up. He was so free about the way he talked about what it's like to be faced with death like that. So he was talking really fast, and I was trying to take notes, and I was writing on a piece of paper, and I had this canvas because I knew that this would be the canvas that I was going to paint him on, and it didn't have anything on it yet. And so I just laid it down, and I started taking notes on the canvas, and I had never done that before. And I was just scribbling on it, and all kinds of stuff, and I have some pictures that I want to show you. I didn't know before this day that I was going to start working this way. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see this. Fortunately, it's a small crowd. This is Drew. Can you guys see it? Mm-hmm. So this is Drew, and this is this canvas. And this already has some paint on it, but in earlier layers, I just was scribbling my notes as he was speaking. I was just writing all over it. And then while he was still in the studio, I started painting on it. And then, we were exhausted because a few hours had gone by, and we had done all this emoting and crying and drank some tequila, and it was a profound day. It was a really good day. And then he left. And so when he left, this is about the stage that the painting was at. I'm gonna just walk around a little bit so you can see it a little better. That's Drew. That's that painting. Can you see it? So this was the beginning of this new process where I would start writing on the canvas as my first layer. And it was interesting to me because I've always just been using paint. I haven't used text in the canvas. You can see here, these are some of the other paintings that are in this room, that these are some of the layers underneath. So this one right here is the bird. This one right here is that piece at the end. So I think what I want to do is I want to show you a little bit of what this actually looks like. I brought a blank canvas. So if you're feeling, this is a good way if you're feeling blocked again too, and you just don't know how to start, or I don't know if anybody has that problem. Usually I used to attack a canvas, and you don't really have trouble starting. But I hope I don't get this all over myself. So right now I feel fear, because I'm speaking. And what happens if I make an ass of myself? Sorry, guys. And this is a way that I can just see right in front of myself. What am I thinking about? What if my intention today is to rise. I want to feel brave. I want to emote. I don't want to be scared. Fear is another word that comes up. This is what happened when I was working with Drew, is I would write something and I would realize that there was a word that would annoy me, so I would cross it out. If it was a word that I felt good about, I would put it at the top and circle it. Then I started making arrows and drawing, like right now I'm feeling scared, so I'm going down. Right now I'm feeling brave, so I'm going up. And all of a sudden I realized that I was creating the beginnings of a composition just by these scribbles that are coming out. So it could be words, it could be lines. There's another thing that sometimes happens to me. You can see it in the painting there. You can see in the orange part where there's like scribbly lines down in here. You can see all that stuff. So there's something that sometimes comes out of me that's just kind of like nonsense. It's like these little marks, and I have no idea what they are, and they don't mean anything. And sometimes I'll like go all the way across the canvas and it just keeps going. And the amazing thing is that I can fill space really fast. And it's exciting to me, because I don't have any plan of what's going to come out, and I really don't care what's going to come out. So it's very freeing. Like all of a sudden I feel much better now that I've just done that. Whatever that feeling I had in my body that was scary just left. now I feel myself. And I think it's probably because I started to make something visual. So I know for me that if I'm going to communicate a visual language, being able to see my thoughts and feelings, that gets me over the hump of I don't know what to do. You know, if you're in your studio, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to begin. I have artists ask me all the time, how is it you're so prolific? I mean, all this work happened in a really short amount of time. And I think it's because I just have so much I want to do. Do you guys relate to that feeling as artists? Like, there's so much to explore. There's so much to say. So the painting of Drew, I know I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but the painting of Drew was the first one where those kinds of marks, that kind of text, was allowed to remain in the painting. And then since hit the painting of him, I did a whole bunch more that have all that writing in it. And part of the title of this talk is Seeking Balance. And one of the reasons I called it Seeking Balance is because I'm trying to figure out what is the right balance in communicating. How much of this text do I leave? How much do I push all the way to abstraction? How often do I need to put a recognizable subject? Do you guys see an eagle in here, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
It's still there.
I've said to people before, like, oh, you see the bird, and they're like, and then I realize not everybody can see inside something that's not literal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it's not totally literal, they just don't see it, which is fascinating to me because I love, looking into something and finding things in it. Anyway, so in this one, so you have to imagine this had text all over it. This was just completely covered. And then I started getting paranoid that it was too much, that all this writing was just a mess like that. So then the ego started to happen. And then at another point, I was talking to a woman whose name is Sally, another person that I interviewed. She's another cancer survivor. And I started drawing Sally in here. There's actually a portrait of Sally, like right about in here. And then she rides her bike as her way of dealing with her health. And so there's like a little bike over here. And there's paths, and there's all this stuff that has to do with Sally. And what I ended up realizing in interviewing someone like Drew and interviewing a person named Sally is that by starting to bring their stories into the studio, opened up a whole other facet of the way I'm creating. Before it was more just me, it was just like what I care about, my thinking. Now all of a sudden I was creating about what Drew thinks about, I was creating about what Sally thinks about. This piece is specifically from conversations that I had with Sally. I was hoping that she could be here today. She lives in Portland. She's riding her bike for a pediatric cancer awareness thing. And she's another person that nearly died. And now she's riding her bike like 25 miles today. It's just amazing to me what happens with people, that at one moment they're almost done, and the next minute they're like taking off in a whole other chapter. I think that's amazing about our lives. Right when you think that something is a certain way, it all changes. And I think that's what's exciting about the art, is that if you keep looking for new ways for your art to evolve, if you keep looking for new ways to express yourself, it just builds and builds and builds, and there's no end to how much can come out of you. Like there's not a finite amount of creativity. Do you feel that, Shirley? Like there's just more and more and more.
Yeah, it's like a Pandora's box. Like, oh, what did I get started on?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I don't. Sometimes when people talk about that they just can't create, that they're completely blocked, I don't really understand that. To me, I mean, I can get blocked, but it releases so quickly by just trying something new, by just moving in another direction. I think this would be a good time to see if there's questions. Does anybody have questions about specific pieces, or? I don't know if we go on the spot, I'm sorry. Let's do it this way. So this painting of Drew, how about if you guys start telling me what you think that painting is about? And it can be anything, you won't offend me, you can say anything. Like, what does it feel like to you? What do you think is happening to that person?
To me, it looks like he's in a cocoon.
Wow.
Like he's wrapped up in something,
Mm-hmm.
which has a kind of metaphor of transformation
Right.
itself. That was what I thought firsthand.
How about anybody else? What do you see? Like, why would I paint him with this all, what appears to be completely abstracted or ripped up? Does this area look kind of like it's actually falling apart or ripped up?
To me, it looks like it's a study of physical, and there's a parsing out of pieces and parts, and
Wow.
it's kind of the disjointed or not quite right put together
Right.
as a feeling.
That's part of what I like about painting abstractly and then adding subject into it by adding the figure into the abstraction. Is that all that abstraction starts to take on meaning. You start reading all those little shapes. It's like, what is that? Is that physical flesh? Is that something morphing into something else? Is there a dynamic story happening in there that you can only understand by talking to the artist? Because only I know, what I intended. But the fun is to see where other people take it.
When I first saw it, I thought it looked like armor. And then when you said he was terminal with cancer, I thought, well, is that the cancer? So there was a question about what you were representing.
That's really good. All three of you have actually hit on parts of what I intended, and I'm going to tell you more. Is there more what you can read in it? The cocoon part interested me. How do you see the cocoon? Like, what makes you think that?
It may be like that kind of like umber color, like of the kind of chest area, like, but it sort of looks like it has, it's got this, like he's like wrapped up in something.
Yeah, I didn't intend it at the time I painted it, but afterwards I started to feel like he looked like he was wrapped in a flag.
The red, white, and blue thing, and then
The
the
red,
trunk
white, and blue.
crossed out at the bottom. Yeah,
Sorry.
that's interesting. It's interesting.
Why didn't you notice that before?
That was the second thing I noticed.
I promise I won't talk about politics. So I'll tell you a little bit more about what I intended in the way I abstracted the painting. The area that is by the shoulder, that's actually where his port is. The port is something that's under his skin where they deliver the chemotherapy. And the reason, when I started painting that area, I didn't want to be literal. I didn't want to paint, his port. And I had all this emotion in me about what he's experiencing. And so I just started painting very abstractly, very fast, and letting it be rough and loose. And then when I came back in and started defining where the head is and the actual torso, I kept leaving that area. I kept painting around it. I kept not covering it. There's abstraction like that through the whole painting. So why would I choose to leave the area where his port is rough? And for me, it was specifically because that symbolized both when he showed me that. By the way, he showed me he has his scars through here. He has this huge scar here. The port. I mean, it's like all this stuff going on. It was so hard to realize. Like he looks really healthy at this moment. You saw the picture of him. He looks healthy. So it's hard to believe that there's something so wrong going inside his body. So I kept leaving that area because I knew that abstraction symbolized the pain I was feeling for him and the pain that he's actually going through. And the reason I painted the torso like armor was because I wanted to protect him. I wanted to be the person, which of course you can't, right? But I wanted to like find a way to protect Drew. And the best way I could do that was metaphorically by giving him this armor. And I was surprised that I painted it black. Any ideas why he's a white person? Any ideas why I painted the armor black? Guesses?
That's what color I see cancer to be, is black, and so I'm wondering if that's
Fear. It was my own fear. Like I could only paint his body dark because I was afraid of what we were dealing with, and the heaviness of this black felt at the same time mysterious and scary and strong. Like there was something about putting this color on this white person and using this paint on his body that was black felt like an empowered decision on my part. And when he saw it, when he came back to the studio later and saw the painting, he just loved it. He cried, and he loved it. And he said that it was really hard for him to look at the painting, I can imagine. Can you imagine what it would be like to look at that painting if you know it's about you? It was really hard for him.
His face is so kind of calm and confident.
Which is how he is.
Yeah, so that with the black armor just gives him a sense of serene strength, like he's accepted, this is the future, I'm here now.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
He's so resilient, and I think that's why I'm so interested in talking to people who have ailments and are really struggling, is because I'm interested in what does it mean to be at risk, to be on the edge, and also be so strong. And it's amazing to me how many people who have dealt specifically with cancer, something comes over them that is like this peacefulness, this resilience, this sort of rising to this place that I don't think we all get to without being so challenged, without having something serious and scary happening. Anyway, those are the main elements in that painting, is where his court is and the armor. I left the part here where you can see the text again, I left that part open partly just to symbolize that he is fragile and that he is at risk. And I didn't want to necessarily make the shield or the armor cover the entire thing. One last thing I'll say about this painting is you see the little circle that's up in the top?
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that in a lot of my paintings.
Like the red thing on the side too.
It's two different things.
Okay.
I'll get to the other one. So the circle is here, circle is here. It's in a couple places in this one. Here and up there. It appears in that one. I started feeling like I wanted to have a reminder in my paintings to myself that my paintings are much more than what they appear to be. Like to me, that this is an eagle, but the painting is really about thinking. It's about consciousness. The whole point of me doing these paintings, I could care less about painting an eagle, but I love thinking about all this stuff. I love thinking about what it means to be alive, what it means to be dying, what it means to be in pain, what it means to be in love. You know, these are the things that crying. These are the things that I care about. And so that circle is my own reminder that it's like consciousness. It's like when I make that circle, it's often the last thing I do on the painting. And when I'm making that shape, it's just like I'm kind of centering in and realizing that what this is for me is about spiritual consciousness, about rising above all the things that are so challenging in our lives. Why is life so hard? Does anyone have a good answer?
To make us stronger.
To make you stronger. That is a good answer.
I just wanted to say that on that painting I see blue pants and legs.
Blue pants and legs. Yeah, I can see that too. I never saw it as pants before, but I do now. So the circle is one symbol that is in a lot of them, and then this is another symbol that has kind of developed over the last few years. And that one I see more just as like a disc. And for me, that one is about hope and transcendence. So by putting those two things on my canvases, one is higher consciousness, and the other one is basically just hope and the idea that we do become more than we were, that we can always become more, that we don't have to. You know, I started out talking about fear, being afraid, and I feel like my life is continually rising. There's this transcendence that's happening while I'm alive. I think that there's going to be transcendence again later, but I feel like I'm transcending now. And to feel that, I feel grounded now. You know, I didn't when I first started talking to you guys, but now I feel solid in my body again. And this is what happens to me in the studio over and over and over. Walking to the studio, maybe a little timid, maybe a little nervous, maybe a little scared. By the time I'm painting, I'm feeling powerful. By the time I'm done, I'm exhausted and I feel exhilarated. I feel like everything in the world is good. For me, that's what being an artist is about, is that continual transformation that happens in the studio. If you can go through that, if you can go in your studio and become more than you were when you walked in, I mean, it doesn't matter if they sell, it doesn't matter. Of course it matters because we're in a gallery and I need to sell the work. Slight edit there.
Rewind.
Record scratch.
But really, in all honesty, it doesn't matter if they sell. What matters is that you have this experience with the piece of art, that you yourself learn something, and that you expand when you're creating. That something bigger than what you were happens. I think that's it. I think that's really all I need to say. And if you do have questions, you can ask me now or later, but I'm more than happy to talk about the pieces individually or talk about technique or anything like that. So.
Well, I'm not an artist, the brother is.
Yes.
But listening to you talk, you have been blessed. And each time you go through one of these, you're stronger, you're wiser.
Thank you.
Your love, peace is with you.
And that's my big sister. If she said it, it's true.
You know, there's a side note. Is that thing still running?
Yes.
I should say this. So I kind of touched at the fact that my familial relationship has been challenging, also with my parents. So just before I came here, we were out on the beach. Chuck and I were out on the beach with our dog and having this amazing experience. And I felt like I needed to talk to my mom, which I think is so funny because I'm 46 years old. I get scared. What do I want to do? I want to talk to my mom. Still.
Yeah.
So I called her. And I haven't seen my mom in person for over 10 years. We do have a challenging relationship. But I love her and I need her and I know that this comes back to me. So I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I have to talk and I'm really scared. And she's like, how could you possibly be scared? I've actually done a lot of public speaking. And so it's not, I mean, it's strange that I'd be so scared. But she just talked me right off that ledge. She just told me that I was okay. She told me that everything would be fine. She told me that I would connect with people. And the last thing that she told me, and I know I'm gonna cry again, is she said she knows we just all want to be accepted, exactly like we are. And to have my Catholic mother say that to me at this stage means a lot. She hasn't been talking to me that way for like 30 years. But to have her say to me today, right before we come here, she accepts me and loves me. I was like, okay, I can go do this. I got it.
It maybe has taken her a while
I'm sure it
to
has.
understand and accept.
It's hard for her. It's hard for me. But that is why I create this art, is to be okay in the world. It's my way of being okay in the world. So thanks, Mom. Any other questions, comments?
Can you tell them the story about the bird that you found?
Yes.
I thought that was really interesting.
So this piece right here is called Let Go. So one day while I was in the studio, I was feeling a little like, oh, I don't know what to do today. And frequently when I'm in that state, I head to the water. We live really close to the Puget Sound, about a mile from it. So I just go straight to the water. And I trust in my heart that I'll instantly be filled with inspiration. And because I know that, it always happens. Every time. So I walked out on the beach, and right away, there was a seagull, and it couldn't fly. It was stuck. And it was flapping its wings, and another bird that I think was its mate kept coming back and was like trying to help it, but clearly couldn't help it. And so this bird is just flapping its wings and stranded. And I couldn't tell why it couldn't fly. I mean, it didn't look really damaged. It just seemed to be stuck there. And I looked out into the Puget Sound, and there were a bunch of herons, which is what I thought I would see. I usually go down to the water to look for great blue herons. So the herons are out there, and then I noticed, oh, there's a bald eagle soaring around above this bird that's stuck. And then I started thinking, is he stuck because the eagle has already hit him once, or is the eagle just waiting because it's going to be an easy meal? And so I started talking to this bird, and it's flapping its wings, and the other bird keeps coming up, and I went really close to the bird. It's like literally right here. And I ended up having this long talk with this seagull about death and dying, and fear, and acceptance. And I made a video, which I have on my phone. So I'm sitting there talking to this bird, and thinking, I am really morbid. And then I thought, no, I'm just having another experience about letting go. And what I found myself saying to this bird is, yes, you're about to get eaten by that eagle, but whatever's next is going to be good. It's going to be okay. And the more we talked, I felt great. I don't think I really helped that bird, but when I wandered away, the message that was in me was just let go. And I know that's fear. The thing when I say let go, what I'm talking about is fear. Letting go of fear. I think fear is the only thing that blocks us. I really do. If you can let go of whatever your fears are and just be yourself, just pound whatever you want onto that canvas. That's it. So that's why in the bottom of this painting it says trust, love, and heal. I had written all kinds of stuff up and down that canvas, like tons of things. And it just keeps boiling down to these really simple principles for me. Letting go of fear, trusting, loving, healing. Like that's all I care about now. I spent so many years caring about so many other things, but all I care about now is just letting go and not being afraid. So it took me into my 40s to get to that, but I'm grateful to be there. Is that the story you wanted to hear? I could tell you a little bit more about this painting. This one is called Language of the Psyche, this abstract painting. And this was painted a couple years ago. It's the oldest painting in here. Everything else is new or newish. At this stage, I was still too afraid to say what I really wanted to say, so I was hiding everything inside abstraction. And that's an interesting thing to think about, because some people choose to paint abstractly only because they like to paint abstract shapes. But I realized that I was painting abstractly because I was too afraid to say anything real, that I was using it as a way to hide. I guess that's the main thing that I would tell you about that painting. I love that painting, and I got into a lot of edgy, cranky things I wanted to get out. But now I'm not so afraid to just say exactly what I mean. At this stage, I was still kind of covering everything. I feel like the work that I'm starting right now is just the beginning of being a lot older, of like moving into a space where I feel more myself. I think in this stage, I was still like hiding a lot. From what? From who? I don't know.
I'm so glad you said that. It makes a big. It's interesting to make the distinction between that piece and all the others, you know. And even like the color scheme.
Yeah, it's different.
It's different. Like it has a different emotion to it.
I think a lot of my older work, I love a lot of my work throughout the history of making work. I think so much of it has been so covered in pain and fear. I'm kind of ready to be done with that.
Do you think that means that you're not going to paint like the abstract work as much anymore?
I think I'll probably still paint abstract. I think it's just going to mean something different to
It's
me.
going to.
I think it's going to be less about hiding and more now just about being myself. You know, you might not see that big a change in the work, but it will feel very different to me. That disc, this kind of disc shape, is how this kind of started. I was making these discs, and then it became this disc, and now you see it all over the place. Now, it's become more distinct. Now it's more like it's just there, and I don't feel like I have to explain why. I used to think like, oh, I have to have a reason why I would do that. Now I don't care. If I want to put that on there, I can. That's what I think is interesting as artists' work matures, and you see them become more confident, more themselves. They just put what they want where they want, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's your piece of art. Do what you want.
I think we can use that with an analogy to life. It's your life. Put those marks where you want, and move on.
That's right. I think art is always an analogy to life, but it's just, it's all the same thing. I keep thinking I'm done, but here we see.
Don't look at me.
Alan, is there anything you want to add? Because Alan, the owner of the gallery, has been so supportive in this body of work in particular. She came to the studio and spent some really important time with me.
I think the thing that you told me yesterday when we were looking at the show about that you kind of dive into these really deep kind of emotional states to, make these more symbolic kind of paintings, that then you come back to this to calm all that energy down. I think that was a relationship in your work that I hadn't really understood that connection before, about how you said you bounce from a few different styles, but it really is a thread that does run through everything when you look at the creative cycle as a whole. And so I think that was just kind of an interesting thing that you didn't touch on, I guess.
I definitely do go back to landscape because it's where I feel really safe. And I think landscape is something that everybody can relate to. Any viewer that comes into a gallery or museum can look at a landscape and understand it. And for me, because it's creating space that people can wander into the painting, it feels safe for me and it feels safe for the viewers. And it is definitely what I always return to. I'll paint something super abstract, something cranky, and then I almost immediately want to paint landscape. I think it is where I feel good and I feel safe again. It can be scary when you go out on, I don't think people understand. Going out on these ledges to paint like this, it can be scary. You're in your studio by yourself, but you're exploring stuff that's challenging and hard to feel. And when you go through it, then you sometimes have to take care of yourself. And like painting a landscape is like taking care of myself. Okay, now I really am done.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.